We pride ourselves on living in an age of freedom. We can speak our minds, choose our careers, curate our identities. But Friedrich Nietzsche, ever the unflinching mirror, would have laughed at such claims. Because beneath the surface of modern life, beneath the freedom of choice and the illusion of progress, Nietzsche saw something darker. A new form of slavery. Not slavery of the body, but of the mind, of the will, of the individual spirit, slowly suffocated under comfort, conformity, and collective delusion. Nietzsche didn't write for the polite or the passive. He wrote to awaken, to unsettle, to slice through illusions with a blade sharpened by solitude. And what he revealed still cuts. We are not free, not truly. Because to be free is not to do what you want, it's to become who you are without flinching. In the reflections ahead, we'll explore 7 of Nietzsche's most brutal truths about the quiet chains we wear every day and how to begin breaking them. This isn't a call to rebellion, it's a call to awakening. You mistake comfort for freedom. Freedom has never been ease. But in the modern world, we've traded the burden of self-overcoming for the softness of convenience. We call ourselves free because we have choices between brands, screens, lifestyles. But Nietzsche would call this a counterfeit liberty, because true freedom demands suffering. It demands responsibility for the chaos inside you. Comfort is the cage you decorate. It makes no demands of your courage. It asks you only to stay quiet, to stay agreeable, to stay asleep. It offers security in exchange for silence. You feel free because no one is chasing you, but you're already captured by numbness, by habit, by fear of discomfort. Nietzsche wrote for the uncomfortable. He believed the only real liberation comes through struggle, through inner revolt, through willingly entering the fire that burns away illusion. Comfort whispers, stay the same, you're fine. Freedom says, who will you become when there's nothing left to hide behind? Until you are willing to give up your comforts for the sake of your soul, you are not free. You are merely managed. You worship opinions over truth. In the marketplace of modern life, opinion has become God. Everyone speaks, few listen. Truth, once earned through silence and suffering, is now drowned in noise. Nietzsche saw this age coming, the age of truth decay, where belief matters more than insight and validation replaces understanding. You scroll, you post, you consume takes. Not because you seek what is real, but because you crave agree. Your opinions become your identity, and in doing so, you shield yourself from transformation. Truth is not democratic. It is not concerned with how many people agree. It is solitary, sharp, and often uncomfortable. It does not flatter. It exposes. It breaks you before it frees you. Nietzsche believed the thinker must be ruthless with himself, cutting through inherited ideas, societal scripts, and personal delusion. Truth must be confronted, not curated. Ask yourself, do I want to know the truth, or just be right? Am I brave enough to hold what is real, even if it offends my ego? Because until you choose truth over tribalism, clarity over comfort, you are not a thinker. You are just another voice in the herd, echoing what is easiest to say. You obey the herd to avoid yourself. The crowd is warm, the crowd is loud, the crowd will clap for you as long as you don't disturb its sleep. But Nietzsche saw what most do not. The crowd does not love you. It uses you to sustain its illusion of certainty, and so long as you obey it, you will never meet yourself. We obey the herd not because we're weak, but because we're afraid. Afraid of the silence that comes with being alone. Afraid of the mirror that solitude holds. It's easier to disappear into popular belief than to confront the terrifying truth that your life is your own. The herd tells you what to want, what to think, who to be, and in return it gives you approval, but not freedom. Because freedom demands that you walk away from belonging when belonging costs you your soul. Nietzsche's call was not for rebellion, but for individuation. For courage, for standing alone, not to dominate, but to see what you believe, what you value, what you are becoming, without the anesthetic of the collective. Until you step away from the herd, you will never hear your own voice. And until you hear it, you will never know who you truly are. You are addicted to validation, not meaning you post. You wait, you check, you compare, you repeat. In a world starving for depth, we feast on likes, views, and shares, as if they are proof of our existence. But Nietzsche would see this for what it is. Not freedom, not meaning, but addiction. Validation is a sugar high for the ego. It feels like worth, but it's empty. It replaces the hard, slow work of building meaning with the fast thrill of being seen. But being seen is not the same as being, and being praised is not the same as being fulfilled. Meaning requires solitude, inner listening, the courage to walk roads that no one claps for. Validation requires only that you perform what the world rewards over and over until you forget why you began. Nietzsche warned of this hollow performance. He believed that to create real value, you must become a creator, not a consumer of praise. And creation begins with meaning that is your own, not borrowed, not crowd-tested. Ask yourself, would I still choose this path if no one noticed? Would I still speak these words if no one applauded? Because until you are free from the need to be seen, you are still in chains. Only this time, you're the one holding the key. You call cowardice morality. Modern morality often masquerades as virtue, but Nietzsche saw its true face: fear in disguise. What we call good is often just what is safe. What we call kindness is often appeasement. What we praise as humility is often the fear of shining too brightly in a world that punishes difference. Morality, when born from strength, uplifts. But the morality Nietzsche condemned is born from weakness. A herd morality, designed to domesticate the human spirit, doesn't ask you to rise. It demands that you stay small, predictable, obedient. It punishes instincts. It shames ambition. It elevates guilt as a virtue. So you become good, but not free. You act out roles that keep others comfortable. You make yourself digestible, not authentic, and you call it moral. But Nietzsche asked, who decided what is good? Who benefits from your obedience? And at what cost do you earn your moral? True morality begins not in denial, but in honesty. Not in submission, but in strength. The courage to live your truth without apology. To act from your own values, not the crowd's commandments. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it's right or because it's safe? Because if your morality never requires bravery, it isn't morality, it's fear. You've exchanged purpose for productivity. You are always doing, always moving, always crossing off tasks on an endless list. But beneath the noise, Nietzsche would ask yourself, to what end? Because without purpose, your productivity is just another form of escape, a treadmill disguised as progress. You work, you grind, you achieve, but do you know why? Or has the act of doing become your identity? You confuse being busy with being valuable, but the soul doesn't care how much you've done. It asks, did any of it matter? Nietzsche saw a modern man drowning in action without reflection. We have built a culture that rewards output but punishes depth. We produce not because we are full of vision, but because we are terrified of stillness, terrified of hearing what that silence might reveal. Purpose requires listening. It requires inner alignment, not external approval. And it often demands that you do less, not more. That you trade the illusion of efficiency for the truth of meaningful work. Ask yourself, what am I building? What am I serving? What am I avoiding by staying busy? Because if you cannot sit with your own soul in stillness, no amount of productivity will save you. It will only bury you deeper in distraction. You fear your power more than your chains. You say you want to be free. You say you want to awaken. But Nietzsche knew the real reason you stay small. Not because you're trapped, but because you're terrified of what might happen if you weren't. Easy to blame the system, the past, the culture, but true power means no longer hiding behind excuses. And power, real power, is terrifying. It strips you of victimhood. It forces you to become responsible for your life, your choices, your destiny. No one to save you, no one to blame. So instead you cling to your chains because they are familiar, because they let you play safe. You avoid the call to rise not because you're incapable, but because the idea of your own fullness unsettles you more than your suffering. Nietzsche saw that we fear our potential more than our pain. We fear the burden of freedom, the weight of possibility. Because once you know you can change, you can no longer pretend you can't. Ask yourself, what would I become if I stopped holding back? If I stopped hiding? Because your chains are not locked. You're just afraid of what might happen when they fall. You numb yourself with progress. We worship progress like a god, blindly, relentlessly. More technology, more efficiency, more speed. But Nietzsche saw the danger in this idol. Progress without purpose is not evolution, it is escape. We build and optimize and accelerate, not because we are free, but because we cannot sit still with the truth of ourselves. You convince yourself you're evolving because your devices are faster, your schedule is full, your knowledge is wide. But none of that means you've grown. None of that means you've gone inward. You measure movement but not meaning. Progress becomes a drug, something to consume so you don't have to confront the parts of you that remain stagnant, unexamined, afraid. You numb the soul with the spectacle of advancement, but the soul doesn't care about progress. It cares about depth. Nietzsche didn't oppose progress. He opposed unconscious progress, the kind that builds towers while forgetting the foundation, the kind that runs from death, from stillness, from suffering, and calls it improvement. Ask yourself, what am I running from in the name of growth? Where have I traded presence for performance? Because not all motion is evolution. Sometimes your progress is just a more sophisticated way of avoiding yourself. You've forgotten how to suffer consciously. Modern life has become a race to avoid pain. We medicate it, scroll past it, label it toxic. But Nietzsche saw suffering not as a curse, but as a teacher, a refining fire. And in avoiding it, we've also abandoned the path to depth, meaning, and true becoming. To suffer consciously is to sit with your sorrow, not to wallow in it, but to listen, to let it carve into you, to allow it to transform you. But that takes courage. It takes the willingness to face what hurts without needing to escape it immediately. Unconscious suffering festers. It becomes bitterness, blame, addiction, distraction. Conscious suffering clarifies. It shows you what matters. It kills illusion. It humbles the ego and strengthens the soul. Nietzsche didn't glorify pain for its own sake. He believed in redemptive suffering, the kind that breaks you open so something truer can emerge. Ask yourself, when was the last time I sat with pain and asked it what it came to teach? Because suffering will visit either way. The question is, will you let it awaken you, or will you run from it until it hardens you? You are free the moment you choose to bear the weight of being. Freedom is not lightness. It is not the absence of responsibility. It is not detachment from life. Nietzsche knew the truth. Freedom begins the moment you stop avoiding the burden of existence and choose to carry it anyway. There is a weight to being human, to knowing you are finite, to knowing your choices echo, to living without a script. Most people don't want freedom. They want relief. They want comfort without consequence. But real freedom demands you stand in the fire of life and say yes. Yes to the uncertainty. Yes to the pain. Yes to the beauty that will break your heart. Yes to the fact that no one is coming to save you. And yes to the fact that you don't need them to. Nietzsche called this the affirmation of life, amor fati, the love of one's fate, not passively enduring, but actively choosing to bear the burden of your existence as yours. Not inherited, not borrowed, not apologized for. Ask yourself, what would change if I stopped trying to make life easier and started trying to make it mine? Because the moment you stop running from the weight is the moment you realize you were built to carry it. And in that strength, you are finally free.